Hi everybody. Hi everybody. It's your friend Daniel Hutchins. We're back again. Yes, we're back again. So some more information. Yes, information. So what are we gonna on our friend's screen rant? What are we talking about? The Acolyte. Obviously, this is the worst TV show that Star Wars has ever created. So, join the controversy train, everybody. Choo choo. Join the controversy train, guys, because we are going down a controversial train ride down to the Acolytes. Okay, the Acolyte and their true change to the Star Wars prequels and their era is very dark. Yes, very dark. The Acolyte became one of the worst Star Wars projects ever in existence. Therefore, it has a very profound, very impactful idea to Star Wars television, particularly that of the prequels. The Acolyte actually sets about 100 years before that. However, there is something to be taken effect from the Mandela effect from the prequels. There is a very clear example of why this was ended, which implied Master Yoda himself had helped Jedi Master Vernesta Rowe cover up all that she had, and yet the Acolyte failed. It failed. The Acolytes was essentially an Ahsoka Tano replacement. So yeah, they had basically an Ahsoka Tano replacement back in the Acolyte called this character named JECKI Lon. JECKI Lon had met her end in her final end on episode 5 of the Acolyte, when her and Kumar and the Stranger viciously cut down the Jedi in a way that says that they established herself as a skilled Jedi apprentice. Well, we know she's not, because she sucks. Therefore, that reason alone says from all her common traits and her weakness and demeanor in the lightsaber style, she is basically the Acolyte version of Ahsoka Tano. In fact, she's a replacement of such, in such a way that even the event leading to her death basically saw her face off against the Sith. That was very reminiscent to the Ahsoka timeline. However, as she's also fought against the Sith Lord in the Clone Wars series. Even with her dying on the hand of Kumar, at the end of her fight, it reinforced how powerful her and Ahsoka were, basically managing to hold their own weight against Kumar. At first round, and then even one to crack a proverbial ground around Kumar's mask and reveal his true identity, although it cost her her very own life in the process. Yet there is more darkness than there is connection, as well. Not only does she die, rather than the fact she shares so much in common with Ahsoka Tano, considering she reveals something very gruesome on her dynamic between her and former Jedi Masters. If she was dumb, then Master Soul would have been the Acolyte's Anakin Skywalker. Okay, whatever. Whereas JECKI died basically more than halfway through that show, her master, Master Soul, basically became important to that story too. However, he was kind of more like a kind heart Jedi Master who played the truth and only the truth to be quite different. On the contrary, the Acolyte ultimately revealed Master Soul basically had contributed significantly to the death of the witches on Brendok. This is a storyline that's really important because it assumed the sisters Osha and May were in danger and had them removed from the Witches' Council, whereas it is neither this the case nor the Jedi proper way of the situation. He then allowed Osha to believe that it was May, not the Jedi, who had caused the harm. However, we know that's clearly wrong, because obviously clearly Master Soul is not exactly a real Jedi, as people thought he was. And so, therefore, in the line of several connection between Master Soul and Ahsoka's former master, Anakin Skywalker, there is connection between Master Soul and Anakin Skywalker, infamously struggle with the impulsiveness and the misguided judgment, and have an attachment and emotion. Master Soul basically had an action even help explain why Anakin fell to that dark side back at the age of 24 years old. But even both Jedi ignore the warnings on the fact that behavior has failed in the way and the actions in the ways that Jedi should. This led to why they turned to the dark side and why Master Soul abandoned the way of the Jedis, and subsequently he died. Yes, it is very true, they are very, very close, as with their respective Padawan, basically makes them the true implication to why the prequel trilogy is more clear, especially in the light where JECKI basically had her devastating death. Therefore, it shines a dark light on the training of we saw from basically the comparison where we saw Anakin training AHSOKA. Though they discussed it by the willingness to kill a kid, they flipped the script and blamed it on Master Soul. Therefore, he is the villain he paid as, and one that had brought JECKI to them. Of course, Kumar was already there to blame. He had dealt a proverbial blow, a proverbial death blow. And there is an unsaid kernel of the truth as to what he said, and as important as something to remember, it's applicable to the Jedi Masters as a whole. And yes, JECKI is a very powerful Padawan. She clearly wanted to be there and be right, but we know she fucking failed when it came to fight delivery. However, it also is true that JECKI is only a child, putting her face in danger against a Sith Lord, who admittedly had a very questionable choice of the Jedi way. This is a mirror image as we saw from Anakin training on AHSOKA, which basically was in the front line of the Clone Wars, like we said when she was just 14. Yes, a 14-year-old. Yeah. Although this is shown in Clone Wars, it wasn't until AHSOKA came around when they depicted that in live action. The true scary horror of the reality is really fully felt. In AHSOKA, we saw where she was a child in the time of the Clone Wars, and how it revealed how dark it was for a Jedi to effectively have soldiers that were children. Granted, this isn't the issue specific to Anakin or Master Soul. This is common practice that the Jedi Order was especially corrupt, considering during the Clone Wars, and it therefore represents a much larger problem at hand than these two motherfucker Jedis. Even so, that the parallels are sobering a reminder that Ahsoka's fate basically was worse, if not as worse as JECKI was. So in a sense, the Acolyte is a subliminal blonde between what we saw with the Clone Wars with Ahsoka Tano and Anakin Skywalker, just like what happened with the parallels between JECKI and Master Soul. So, in the old way of the unsettling Jedi Order practice, and why they put young Padawans on the front lines, and how truly, proverbially fucked up that was. Until next time, see you in the next one.